you'd have to suffer capital gains tax and a whole lot of other things, right?
So
basically, you can make...
Well, the easiest way is to say that I know you worked here 50 years, but the current value of the business in 2018, 2019 is 3 to 5 times multiple. I don't care if you worked here 100 years. And the only way we could get anywhere near 5 times multiple is if you become part of the solution in taking back paper, owner finance. And that's this. And that if the conversation ends there, then it ends there. Next. And you guys take way too, not just you, but everybody takes way too long getting to that question. And you take way too long because you don't want the answer really. Because the answer is normally next. And that's why Josh or Marcus in the next room looks at dozens of transactions before they do one.
60 seconds, you said, right?
Well, for me, it's 60, because I ask right away, tax returns, and before you even send me the tax return, just the bottom, what's the tax return bottom line for the last 3 years? Tell me over the phone. And you know they're going to exaggerate, and if the numbers don't stack up on the phone, thank you, call me when the numbers do stack up.
Or you cash flow positive.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't understand what cash flow positive means. And you know, if they have $7 million in after-tax income, then you got something to work with. But when they say $82,000 or 82,000 euros or 82, that's the next. But we have guys that are calling, a couple hundred a week when your universe is 10, 20, 30, 40,000. And that's how many, depending on what end of the healthcare continuum you are. There's 100,000 people to call. You're never going to call 100,000 in your life. And you spend too much time. And then when you do find one, before you bring in the accountants, what does your crack team say? I say crack because it's you can easily say crap. But a lot of the guys, and I said it until I'm blue in the face, you don't want to call your CFO that's got 35 years with KPMG because the questions you're going to ask him, you sound like a fool. But that's the only way you're going to learn. And if you're not willing to do that, you spend years doing this shit. As opposed to the guy that I just showed you in 104 fucking days. 2 hours. Do you realize 2 hours a day? 2 hours. That should embarrass everybody. I hope it does. 2 motherfucking hours a day. Full-time military, keeping communism from your doorstep. Shocking, actually. Bloody shocking. But he's on a mission. He's on a mission, just as Josh was on a mission, and just like a 10-month guy, 10 months.
What I get quite often is I talk to a seller and I have the initial discussion around keeping them in the deal, doing some owner financing. And the answer... No, not some. You start with 100% owner finance. I can pay you whatever the fuck you want, you meathead retard. 100% financing owner. Remember, I said... You name the price, I name the terms. You can pay 100, this isn't exaggerated, 100 times more than it's worth. I'll pay over the next 1,000 years. It's not some. You start with all, You have your wish list, sex wish list when you're going to bed with somebody. If you don't start off with bodacious, outrageous shit, you're never going to get anything accomplished. Okay, so now the sellers tell you what? They say quite often, yes, I'd be open to having a portion of the purchase price or all of the purchase price deferred over whatever time period. The question, or the subsequent question I often get is, well, how do I know I'm going to get paid?
You don't. And if by default you get the business back. You don't. There's no guarantee. But the kids won't say that.
The first time it happened to me, and I lost a deal over this, I basically went into what are the mechanics around having a second charge and all that, and it just confused the hell out of the person.
That's
and
not necessary.
Probably understandably so, as accountant also said, no, you shouldn't do that. But where I had more success is when I started basically saying, right, what exactly is your concern here? Is that we'll mismanage the business and we won't be able to pay you? And he says yes, then you point him to the board, you go through their track record, all that. And then the other thing is that he says, right, and even if it does default, according to you, the seller, this is worth however much. So even if there's some debt on it, some bank debt, you still get out okay, because according to your valuation, it's worth
correct
whatever. So doing that instead of trying to get into what exactly is your security.
No, I didn't teach you how to. I didn't teach you about all the second charges because they don't mean anything. They don't mean anything. The accountant is looking to kill the deal because you're going to fire him. You're not going to use him anymore. The CFO of the deal is looking to kill the deal because you're not going to need him anymore. You're asking people that are going to lose their jobs.
And I should put it on camera. That's credit to Bruce Whipple for shifting the focus to say, well, what's your concern? And this is why it isn't a concern.
Yeah, well, I mean, it still can be a concern to them because it's the concern in the back of their mind. But I mean, guys, I mean, and you're making these deals all too difficult. I mean, to this day, I mean, Josh doesn't shift the concern. I mean, to this day, Marcus in that other room doesn't shift the concern. When you have to use that rationale, it's because you've lost control of the sales process. And once you've lost control of the sales process, might as well leave. Next. But for most people, because they've spent 5 fucking months getting to that point, they don't want to leave. But if you've only spent 5 minutes, Connor,
it's not a big loss.
Correct. And that's all it should take you. 5 minutes, 20 minutes. And that's before you go out there, and that's before you shake their hand. Because if you've got nothing to talk about, you've got nothing to talk about. In the beginning, I tell you to practice. But you heard Josh, once he gets past the gatekeeper, and he gets past the gatekeeper because he says, we're calling about a joint venture, and no secretary worth her salt is going to defray a joint venture potential income to the boss. And when you talk to the owner, the principal, my name's Rufus Doofus, and I head up a successful investment consortium that has financed so many deals over so many years, $3 billion. And have you considered selling your business? And they either say yes or no. If they say no, thank you very much for your time. Have a good day. Go fuck yourself.
And that's when you said investment group.
We just need to choose the printer because our printer is not working upstairs.
Okay.
Just continue.
Okay. But again, you either a combination because you're trying to be nice, or you're afraid, or all the. I mean, you don't have to be nice to these people. God damn it! How many times do I have to tell all the guys? These webinars you're going to see these guys are ruthless, Connor. You're on the other side of the table now. You don't have to be. I'm not saying you be rude, but some of the people I got the phone slammed on me yesterday, and I said, you don't know what rude is, asshole. I'll show you rude. You're going to piss people off. Don't you get it? In fact, if you're not pissing people off, you're doing it wrong. It's better to piss off than be pissed on. Because they're wasting your time. Actually, you're wasting their time, is the truth. Because there's no way that you're going to buy the business. Why should you lead them to believe you're going to buy the fucking business when you're not? They want this, and you want this. And, when the spread is too great, there's no way to make up that spread, even with owner finance. Some of these deals, unless it's 100% owner finance, and you're going to hear a webinar tomorrow or the next day, where one of the guys, oil and gas business, they went through 3 financing potentials, and all 3 cratered because of environmental reasons. And finally, they said it was a toxic waste dump, and it was an environmental 3. They needed to report $1 million in a year. And finally, the lady seller, who's a widow, said, how can we do this thing this week? And my guy, God bless him, jumped up and said, 100% owner finance, we can close it tomorrow. Which was a lie, but she says, done. But 3 financings fell apart. Because every environmental study found a little more ugliness. The first environmental study is $3,000. You get what you pay for. The next one's 40, 50 grand.
Phase 2, phase 3.
Yeah. And she said apparently there used to be a gas station in the 1920s on the property. In 100 years, it hasn't done anything, but now it's a phase, whatever. So she just said, fine. Now, my guy had to sign an indemnity, if the place blows up and there's an atomic bomb underneath and, nuclear waste, but, he was fine with it.
You got the deal done.
Yeah, and this is not a nuanced sale. That's the word I was trying to think of inside. This is not a nuanced sale, and most of you kids try to make it a nuanced sale. This isn't the difference between Arpège and Chanel perfume. That's a nuanced sale. This is Tesco perfume or Arpège. And we're giving them Tesco. This is not a nuanced sale. This isn't the difference between well, it's more having known Bentleys and Rolls. This is not the difference between a Bentley and a Rolls. This is the difference between a Rolls and a
Volkswagen.
No, an Escalade. Okay. You're making it. Why do these guys with the least education get this shit? I told you this at the beginning.
Because they're just as direct as possible, and they're not thinking about anything else.
Correct. And God bless the retards. I mean, it's an awful thing to say, but I mean, and remember, accountants, lawyers, doctors, investment bankers, MBAs. There's a couple other on there. It's hard to do for you guys because you're reading too much into it. I've had a kid just say, what price? Over 25 years? No problem. I don't need to see the books. Doesn't matter what the price is. Because they're going to come out with the highest price possible first, right? Done. 25 years. No interest first 5 years. Done. We can have the paperwork signed in 72 hours. And then immediately you're trying to refinance it in the first 30 days. Do you intellectually, do you understand that? What that means? It sounds far-fetched, but it happens. It doesn't matter. Price is a fig Newton of your imagination. It doesn't matter when it's 100% owner finance. Because then you're not worried about, it almost doesn't matter what cash flow is, as long as it's got cash flow. But this is not a nuanced sale. And shift, I understand, Bruce is right about that. But Bruce comes out of a nuanced sale background, I come out of, I'm more on the prostitute end of the continuum. Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes or no? And look at all the deals I've done.
Time is vicious when you waste it.
Oh, look at this. He's from bumfuck Tennessee, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we had a bumfuck Mississippi boy. He makes Tennessee guys seem like Rhodes Scholars. I mean, this boy. It's just, I mean, you're making it more difficult than it needs to be. So what deal are you talking about now?
We're doing the second bedpan deal. It's the one that has much less documentation than the first one. So starting on the easy one.
Okay. Normally you don't have documents. So who's the selling agent? Is there a selling agent?
No, it's off market.
Okay, so that means it's the actual the owner.
Yep.
And how motivated is the owner?
Well, he's 70 years old and wants to retire, and kids are not interested in taking over the business.
Well, almost. There's probably a million business owners in Britain alone that fall into that category.
Well, can I add some extra color on that? Is that he tried to sell it before, couldn't. About a year ago, he got divorced also a couple of years back. About a year ago, his daughter was diagnosed with some brain cancer or something in the brain. He needs to take care of her, and he also wants to move to Spain. And he doesn't seem too well either when I met him. So
he's very motivated.
I think he's certainly going towards the motivated end of the spectrum.
Okay, well, that's all sounds good. Okay, it's lunchtime. It's 1 o'clock, right? Is it 1?
Yeah, 1:05.
Okay, I'll see you at 2:15 back in the seminar room.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, you're welcome.
Oh, did you have a quick?
Dan, on the 100% owner finance, that's only going to work if there's no debt on the business, right?
No, well,
Unless they're willing to assign the debt to you then.
Well, yeah, exactly. But I've done 100% finance, and they keep the debt.
They keep the debt.
Correct? And you just adjust the sales price.
And also, let's say you do 100% financing, owner financing. Then when you go to immediately borrow against it, following that, then it depends what security the seller
Correct.
has, right?
So
yeah,
the devil's in the details.
willing to be subordinate.
Correct. Well, no. If the seller's not willing to be subordinated, seller finance doesn't work.
Yeah.
Under any circumstance.
Well, when you do 100% seller finance, you're going to have to explain to them ahead of time, I intend to borrow against this right after this deal.
No. You need the option in the purchase and sales agreement that there's no covenant that you can't borrow. You don't tell them you're going to borrow, but there's no negative covenant keeping you from borrowing. That's the only disclosure you have to make.
Okay.
You said pushing covenants?
Covenant. There has to be no negative covenant saying that you cannot borrow against this asset. But ask me that in the room when we hook up back. Not hook up. I gotta stop using it. Now that I know what it means. Okay.
Thanks.
I will see you. I'm going to do work. I will see you in the what do you call it? You're going to have lunch. Okay?